Okay, everyone, welcome to Sabado Sessions podcast. Today we have none other than JBS and Ben Davies to talk about the upcoming EGM and the changes that's going to come about. Very important one here, so I hope everyone that's listening in will be very well informed after this. We have the two guys that's pretty much on the forefront of it all. So yeah, just to kick it off, lads, why all of this happening right now of all times?
Over to you, Ben. Over to you. You go first.
Okay, cool. Guys, first of all, thanks for having us. I think it's pretty close to certainly our hearts and a lot of other people within the Federation. I think the prime driver behind why we're doing this is around us wanting progression for the sport. So in my mind, it is all around the management of the organisation and how we can collaboratively plan to move forward. I'm not going to go into mistakes of the past. I don't think that's appropriate. But I think what we bring, and hopefully the questions you guys will ask us throughout this podcast, will allow us to demonstrate that the management function that we can bring to the Federation will all be about collaborative planning and taking us multiple steps forward over the coming years. And I think what's really important is that what we're proposing to do is an interim solution and not a power grab. It is all about what we can bring and the goodwill of volunteers to take this federation forward. I'll pause there, James, and then if you've got anything else to add on that.
I think we're in a position as a federation where we've got quite a lot of discord and disconnect between the board and the membership. I don't think a lot of membership feel like they're being heard. We've tried now, we're in our 2023 now. We've had 2 years of unapproved financial budgets for the board. This last year, we've had an unapproved financial report by the board, and we're not seeing any progress. I think it was 2020 or 2019, we had a motion passed that we should no longer be holding national competitions in gymnasiums. And here we are still with what we've got now. Now, that's of no detriment to those who ran the recent Open. I think Aidan and his team put on a great job of what they had available for them. You know, they're a dedicated team and they work really, really hard at it. But I think we're just at the point now where our membership deserve better. Especially with the likes of SBD Sheffield coming on, you guys have just been across the water to France to see what's going on there. When what we can see that can be achieved by working with partners, especially what I managed to do in the last 2 years at Gymshark, has proved that we can actually put on a really good show. And of late, as a national promoter, that's becoming harder and harder and harder to do.
Yeah.
So we need to move forward, and we need a team that's on board that's going to work as a team.
And I think it's worth, Sorry, Jen. I think it's worth saying as well on that, because it's about taking the opportunities that are presented to us. So on the very specific point, because I know it will come up, people will know that I was on the board last year for British Powerlifting and obviously subsequently stepped down for a number of reasons that I haven't made public, although those that speak to me regularly do know. The element of competitions, we have had multiple opportunities from both Gymshark and SBD to get better. And it's about taking those opportunities, which is what the current leadership haven't been able to do for whatever reason. I'm sure they have their reasons, but you only get one shot at growing a sport. You look at somewhere with sports like Strongman, where they were 10 years ago, competing in pub car parks. And if we don't take the opportunities that we get from likes of SBD, from Gymshark, from other partners that want to work with us, you only get offered those opportunities once. And that's why it's so important to take those opportunities now and move forward where we can.
I think, go on, James.
No, and work with these partners and work closely with them. I mean, especially what we've managed to get out of Gymshark for the past 2 years. And especially this last year, I didn't think that I could have improved on 2022 junior champs. We had 220 athletes in 2022. We had 347 this last year, and it was even better than the year before. And I didn't think we'd be able to do that. And they really are excited about it. They're speaking to the directors, the CEOs of Gymshark, and that was all for free. Didn't cost British Powerlifting 1 penny for that building, and they spent 45 grand on it for us.
I think probably, I know Indy has got a catalogue of questions from our members across British Powerlifting, because we did put questions out there and then we came out with a few questions. But one of the things that it's been going on in my head was, I know here we're talking about what quality of competition we have to offer then as athletes that we deserve from the federations. So this is just the comp side. So in terms of like, we know the Fed is not just about comp side, right? The Fed has got a lot of aspects, a lot of elements, especially Ben, yourself, you've been on the board, you know what these elements are. So what do you guys propose in terms of like, how would you guys deal with transparency across the board? Because transparency is a question that is basically, myself, literally, like I was in the AGM this year, I think one of the questions I asked the board, it was like, we need transparency across the board. Because as members, we pay for this federation in terms of like membership and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, that transparency, we're lacking. We're lacking that transparency. It's been lacking for years, even for decades. So what do you guys propose? How would you guys deal with that aspect in terms of like making sure your members are aware of what the heck is going on?
Well, I think the first thing we'd love to do was actually, I think it was 2 years ago, there was a team of us spearheading this, wanting to publish board minutes. Now, the redacted board minutes that we get, probably 6 months too late, are very redacted, and they're approved. Yeah, well, this is what we can tell the membership. You know, when you look at this year's IPF Congress, the financial element and the report on there is everything detailed down to the nth degree of where they're spending their money, what it's gone on, and how the impact it's had. And I think that's important, because that £307,000 or so that we finally managed to find out at the last AGM that we've got in the bank, we need to know where it's going. We need to know how we're spending it. And you as members, it's your money. It's the membership's money. It doesn't belong to a select few of people to tick boxes and do what they like. We need to actually be transparent. We need to say what we're doing. But I think mostly transparency comes about through involvement with the membership. So when we're going to, well, the first thing that we plan to do is ask people what they want, ask people to be involved. I mean, Ben and I, our background, as most people know, is ex-forces. And that's all about teamwork. Because we can't be a team of 1 or 2 people. When you speak to some of the Home Nations directors, they have no clue what's going on, because they're excluded from half a board meeting. And they
yeah. And I think, and I know the question is probably coming, right? So I saw on your Instagram that they want named individuals. And I think that's key, right? It's who's coming in. But importantly, and just to highlight what James has already said, we will need, no matter how many named individuals we can give you today, people that want to be involved in the sport need to get in contact with James and I and say, I want to help with this. Get involved to build out larger groups of people to take the sport forward. Even if I give you 8 people of 8 names today, that's still not enough to make the sport as good as it should be. So that engagement piece and information flow backwards and forwards. So not only us piping information down to the membership, they've got to be willing to pipe that back up. But I'm sure with an engaged leadership, that will be forthcoming.
You know what?
Very easily through involvement. That's how you get transparency, by involving people and letting them know what's going on a regular basis. And it just happens, and it will happen.
So I'm gonna ask you guys questions now with, from the athlete perspective of it all. Should you, in the ideal outcome, get the manpower, the help that you need, is what you guys envision? Is there anything for the athletes themselves, whether it be the competitions nationally or even competition internationally? Is there something that is you plan that will be, I guess, better as to what's currently being implemented right now?
James, you want me to talk a bit about structure, and then we can go from there?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So with all of this, guys, it's about having a plan on a page. And at some point before the EGM, we'll publish it. I've got documents that I've written here in front of me. So I'm gonna lead off that because that is the plan. But it's all about having a plan and having teams in place, not single man redundancy. You cannot have an individual responsible for something who might get sick, who might have family commitments, who wants to move on. So it's around having those elements that we can provide full financial transparency. We can have a full competitions calendar in advance of the year. So we talk about 2024. There should be a full calendar locked in for 2024 before the end of the year. Now, alongside that, we've got commitments or future commitments and aspirations as a national governing body. And that requires funding plans. That requires competition development plans. That requires technical, I talk about refereeing and coaching, development plans in place, athlete performance plans. So I think in what are we going to do differently, I come back to this leadership piece. If someone wants to get involved, stick their hand up and please do reach out to JBS and myself. But it's around being able to deliver on all those items and allowing people the freedom and say, yes, go ahead and do that. And I'll let James talk about it from a, leadership perspective, but it's that timeline that we need to work towards ASAP. Because if we don't get it right in 2023, 2024 is already a write-off. And that's the time pressures that we're up against. And I think, the questions come up many a time as to why an EGM now. You might as well write off the next 18 months if we don't have these discussions on the 20th of August.
Yeah. James?
For me, leadership comes with letting people do what they need to do. We can't micromanage. We're not going to be in a position of micromanaging to the nth degree. By empowering people to do what we're asking them to do, by finding out. I think in the last 6 months, I've been, by talking to people as are going around the country, away on coaching teams, like I'm out in Pilsen at the minute with the Masters, talking to people as you're going along. We have got such a depth and wealth of talent and experience within our membership, and so many people want to help. So let's take, for example, Jenny Shield. She spent 4 years at AGMs asking to help to be able to write job descriptions so that we can move forward with that, so everyone knows what needs doing. We have one of our things that we want to do, what I want to do, if I end up being elected as CEO, is I need to be able to leave at a drop of a hat, if needs be. If the membership don't want me there anymore, then we need to have a smooth handover and it all be done. Just like I've managed to do in the North Midlands in the last 18 months. Took over from the North Midlands, and here we are now, 12, 13, 14 months later. We built it up, we had a 50% growth in membership, and I can walk away tomorrow knowing the fact that we've laid some very good foundations to improve what we've got already. And letting people do that, but putting things in place. We've got a strategic plan laid out now until 2027. So we know where we're going. We're all timelined on everything that we're planning on doing.
And this is in North Midlands?
No, this is our plan for
okay, all right.
James, I've been getting a lot of questions across the board about not so much about the whole plan, but more about some sort of a proposal, because this thing is coming across. People are asking themselves, okay, these guys are coming in for a change. I agree with you, and I agree with pretty much a lot of members in terms of we need change in British powerlifting, because after everything has happened in the past few years, I was literally one of probably the leading members in the AGM, literally screaming change, right? We all literally need change. So a lot of people are saying, okay, you guys want change, but we need to see some sort of a documentation of a proposal, because you can convince me, you can convince Indy or Mo or Joey here. It's great because we're talking to you guys face to face. But our listeners out there they need some sort of I need to see a script. Where the points are, where are they almost like the logistics. I need to read them myself. I don't need anyone to explain it to me. I need to understand in the way I probably understand things. So is there a way that people can get hold of the proposal that you guys are putting forward?
In the next couple of weeks, we'll be releasing our proposed strategic plan. I can give you an outline now of what's going to happen before and the end of the year.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So when we look at the EGM in 2020, the EGM on the 20th of August up in Ashington, it's proposed then that myself take the role of CEO or be elected by the membership to take the role of CEO. For Ben to be elected by the membership to take the role as chairperson. But for us, what's really the most important part of that is you're not stuck with us. And I'm not willing to go into this EGM and go right and have a power grab, because I've heard that word from a few bases. All this is just a power grab. You want to blah, blah, blah. But no, that's not our intention. We want to come in with a fresh wave, with fresh people. And then at the next AGM, we need to be elected, because all we are going to be is interim. You're not going to be, you don't want to be in there going, yeah, well, let's back them all now. Oh, you know what? That wasn't a great idea, was it? But no. So you need to give us 6 months to prove our worth.
6 months. That's the time.
And in that 6 months, but from August the 20th until next year's AGM.
Yeah.
At which we will all stand for election.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the 20th of August. Within the first month, by September, around about September, we want a full external financial audit of our books, which will be transparent and published. Because, like we've already said, that's not our money. It's not the board's money, it's the membership's money. And we need to know where we are. And as CEO, I would be then duty bound by company law, the Companies Act, to be known of the ins and outs of our financial situation, of where we are, where we stand. I run my own business. I've got a great team that run that. I could tell you now how much money I've got in the bank, how much money I've got coming in next month, and how much money I've got to pay out. Within 10 seconds, I could tell you all that. And that's where the membership needs to be. We need to know what's coming in. So we're looking at doing that by September, the full financial audit. We're going to have a full financial team in place by November. With some public planning about where we're going to be spending money and how we're going to spend money, which is the transparency bit that people need to know. Now, during that planning, I personally, with our team, will go through every financial commitment we have and decide whether or not we think it's viable. One thing, which we've asked now for 2 years, is an understanding of why we're spending £9,000 a year on PayPal fees when we don't have to. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of funding.
Yeah, like
a lot of funding. So we'll have that financial team in place by November.
So does this mean, so what would happen to a few motions that were voted this year and the last year? Is it something we have to revisit these motions? When I'm talking motions,
they don't be, because the membership's already voted on that. And it's our intention to go through the last 3-4 years worth of AGMs and have a look at what the membership wants and what hasn't been acted. And it's our duty then to act on that. We can't be in a situation where we were this year, when a question's asked and we say, well, we asked you to do that last year. Why haven't you? And the response we get is, well, we haven't. We need to act on that. That's what the membership wants. Now, I'm under no illusion that we're going to be able to give the membership everything they want, because that is not viable.
Yeah.
We can start by looking at what we have wanted, and we can try to put that in place. Early November 2024 calendar, done, locked in for the whole of next year. And that's really important now, because I think we're in a position where there were 65 people on that letter, the majority of which were high-standing officials, referees, and divisional heads who also want this change. So where are we going to find, otherwise, if we don't do this now, where are we going to find the people to these great competitions that we need? That's the hard bit.
I think the other question is, in my head, this is not a member's question, but this is my question in terms of like, I know, I agree, and I appreciate about the layout you just put there for us. So does this mean you guys have almost your team settled that will lead you until the next election? Because again, the 6 months you asked for, after August, of course, there's 6 months until April next year. So even we said, like, let's just said the current team said, okay, fine, the members vote, you guys, you go in. Is that a team ready, or is it just you and Ben? Because I know yourself.
Yeah.
Okay.
The team is ready. The team is standing by and waiting.
So, James, you want me to run through it?
Yeah, go.
So, the people that have currently put their hands up and are ready to commit to us, and there are teams that need to come under this. So, as James has already said, James will be running for CEO. I will be standing for chairman. Karen Lai will be standing as finance director. Bryn Evans as development director, with Adam Riley under him as technical officer. On the competition side of the house, Kim Cow, as you probably would have already guessed, with Craig Wilkins in competitions and record support, and Dean Bowering to step in as an equipped development director as a named individual. There are a number of other positions that are still in discussion with a number of individuals, and a number of individuals that, because of their current positioning, aren't willing to have their names out there in the public just yet. But I will highlight what we set up at the front of the call. This is all about the team that we can bring to build a bigger team to deliver on our strategic plan. So any members that feel they have the time, the ability, and the right skill set to assist with finance, we want a finance team in place. We want a development team in place. We want a competitions team in place. Should reach out to James or myself before the EGM to ensure that those people can be on board. Be under no illusion, the 6-7 names I listed there aren't going to be able to take the plans forward to the level that we want to. We still require the support of the membership at the highest level.
Are there roles that have been filled where you can't really mention names? You don't have to, just tell us the roles that have been filled. And also, are there any roles that have yet to be filled other than as a supporting team to the, say, like the finance and the competitions, yet to be taken, or someone put their hands up for?
Well, we've got a couple of people interested and put themselves forward as performance directors, which is a great role. And communications director. Currently, we need people forward for that one, because that's really important, and that's one thing that's really going to help with transparency is good communications. And it's got to be a director role. There's got to be a board level role. I applied for the communications director in 2019. Withdrew my application in the end because the board didn't see it fit as a board position. They thought it would be a communications officer rather than a communications director, and requested me to join a board meeting and explain to them why I thought it was so important the communications director should actually be a director. Now, there's two reasons behind that for myself. One was in 2018, a motion was passed in which they said it was an elected position and it had to be a director. So that's what the membership wanted, and that's what they asked for. So that should be delivered. And the second reason is a communications director who's going to be talking to the membership to keep our transparency, to let everybody know what's going on, which is the important factor, can't do that unless they're involved at board level.
Okay.
So that position does need filling. We have two, possibly three independent director roles available, two of which I think we have already filled. One of which is heavily involved in another national governing body. And the other one is head of a charity, a charitable trust, who has offered their services also in grant writing to help us get funding, to be able to move the federation forwards in other avenues.
Yeah, and people will be probably asking at this point, why are the independent directors so important? So we've never had one before, as far as I'm concerned, certainly not in recent history. To comply with certain levels of national governing body status, I assume everyone involved in the sport wants to move up our status and unlock different funding within Sport England. 25% of your board, per the tiering requirements, have to be independent directors, independent non-executive directors, giving an impartial opinion and vote on some of the activities within national governing bodies. So moving forward, these independent director type individuals may not be powerlifters per se, but have an interest in open and transparent development of sporting organizations in general, and they will bring a different skill set. There may be someone out there who actually, that sort of floats their boat, or they tick a lot of boxes with the experiences they've got. But it is a requirement of national governing body status to have 25% of our board, of which you can have a maximum of 12 members on the board per Sport England's guidance, must be independent directors for top tiering within Sport England.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mo,
I think the next one.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I just had a quick question because obviously I've just hopped in between the meeting. I had a question. So in terms of on the lifter side, so I understand from a financial perspective there'll be more clarity, and we're expecting a greater investment into the federation. So the board is willing to able to work with more lifters, work with maybe better event organizers, and just let ideas flourish. But from the lifter side, so from a lifter, what difference would the new board provide or bring in comparison to what's currently there in the system? It's just if there's anything that you could bring, it might be as simple as, hey, we're willing to invest in more competitions across the country because we've seen they're lacking. But what plans do you have that you think you can implement within the next 6 months, implement that will be significant benefit to the lifter, a local regional lifter?
Before we answer that one though, just do me the honour, please, of telling me your top two things that you as a lifter require.
Good question. I'll probably say some sort of as an international athlete or as a lifter within the federation itself.
Well, so we've got two levels there, and our international team represent around about, well, probably 3 or 4% of our membership.
Yeah, very, very tiny percent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does the other 97% want along top to make that 3 or 4% be able to? Because it's not about one group of people. We need to please everybody. We need to give everybody something extra. So just give me two things that you as the run-of-the-mill athlete who wants to come and lift at British powerlifting competitions, give me two things you need.
I think the most important thing right now for everyone in the country is a prestigious nationals. A national that feels worthy of being attending or working towards. And also, I think a clear, for me, I think it's a clear progression scheme, because a lot of lifters are kind of confused as to when they join the federation, how they get to where they do this, how they do that, what are the benefits of even attending a comp or even holding a regional, who owns the regional records in my federation. So I think some sort of track that lifters can follow on their journey to powerlifting.
Perfect. There's two things that I see right now that needs to be tackled with immediate effect. One is the standard of our national competitions. As an international athlete myself, I've competed for 2 or 3 years, but when I was, and now I'm away coaching, I've been away with almost every team this year, every age group anyway. That level of international standard competition should not only be achieved for an international competition. I need that, and I want that, and I will demand that at every national competition we have. There's little bits that we can make massive differences with. You know, one of the ideas we've got a couple of ideas that we're going to have to work through and see how we can do it. But one of our main deliverables and one of our main passions is what I want is, as a comp promoter and as an athlete, I want to be able to walk into a warm-up room and everything all be the same, walk onto the platform and it all be of the same standard. So one of the first things I would look into want to be doing is getting together a competition set to be able to deliver that, so that every national championship that you go to is all to international standard. Our national championship should be at an international level, because otherwise, how are we going to breed amazing international athletes if this is the first time we've had all this treatment? We've got to get the athletes to rise to our occasion at a national level to then expect them to be able to want to rise further to an international level. But that's only going to come with support. And that's only going to come with support both nationally and divisionally. To be able to support the athletes to do.
Sorry, will there be something standardized so as to not dilute like the prestige of a national? So say for example, there's tiers right? So there's divisionals, and then there's or sorry, regionals even, and then there'd be like a I guess something akin to the country's national. So like there's the Scottish Open, there's the English All England, sorry, there's the Welsh, and then Northern Ireland, and then there's actual British nationals. Will there be something standardized to differentiate each and every level of or tiered level of competition? Because as of late, obviously you guys must be very aware that it's a case now where the importance of the British nationals has more or less been diluted because of the quality and the production. I know I'm not alone in terms of like highlighting this, whereby there's more sort of so like want and need to be at the All Englands as of late, because of the production quality, because of the the quality of the setup and everything else. So is there a plan that you guys have in mind, or probably discussed about, in terms of like differentiating each tier?
100%. 100%. One of Bryn Evans, as our interim development directors, one of his first tasks is to engage with all home nations, help them move them forward also, and bring up the level of each home nations. We only have, as British Powerlifting, we've got limited power to tell people what to do. We can't do that. But we can talk to home nations, we can liaise with them and see where we can help them to raise any standards that are required. But let's not be under any disillusion here, Joey. The English Championships, either both the full power or the bench, in the last 2 years have pretty much eclipsed British Championships.
They have. Like there's
which is why we have that massive migration.
Yeah.
I've had this year at the bench, we ran the bench again this year. Last year was a Commonwealth year. We had 115 athletes, I think. This year, it was just your run-of-the-mill English bench champs. We had 137 for something which wasn't a qualifying championships to be an international one. People just come. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah, sorry, Ben. Before I
continue, I was going to say, and I think also be under no illusion that everyone wants change. It doesn't happen overnight, and the strategic plan that I've got in front of us that we will push out before the EGM, there is a plan in place to get all of those elements locked and loaded and run by the divisions, because it's all about getting the divisions up to speed before the next AGM. So that at the next AGM, we can actually talk about and distribute and financially plan, if required, in line with the membership's will, over the next 6 months. James coming in, me coming in with the support of Kim, Bryn, and others. You're not going to potentially vote us in August, and in September there's going to be change. People really need to understand that all of these things take detailed time, financial planning, and engagement from the membership. And that's what we would ask, is that as we come in, all of those that do complain, get involved with the divisions, stick your hand up, be engaged with our team to make your divisions as good as they can be. And I think that's the one big ask from us going forward, because you've never been engaged before. So why would it get better? You can engage with us to make it better for you guys.
Okay, before I hand it over to Indy, because I know he's got a plethora of questions to send over to you guys, is like just going off with the communications with the members and everything else. Are there avenues or mediums that you will put out there just so that it's transparent and clear for the members to reach out to yourself, to James, or anyone else that's like frontlining your team, for them to actually speak their mind or speak their opinions out there? So how will they reach you, pretty much?
Is that between now and then or afterwards?
Both between now and then and afterwards.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I will share my email, my personal email, or my mobile phone number, and anyone can ring me whenever they like. I've got no sort of close hold against any of that.
Same. Likewise. And over the coming weeks, if you have a look at Insta, we'll be sharing through our Insta page.
Okay.
At BP AGM. There's going to be information.
Just last question, Joe, before you move to Indy, because I know James and Ben, we all aware there is not everybody that will be a fan of this in terms of what you guys trying to do. There's people that are skeptical. There's people that have go questions and after questions and after questions. And also, again, understandable, not everybody will like you. Some people think that you guys are just dicks trying to get power for yourself, right? You probably heard it, right? So my question to you is, how would you guys deal with this sort of individual in our federation? Because it's the exact same thing now. We got people that think in the current board is just a bunch of old men that just want to hang on into powers, but they just don't know how to deal with individuals that think like that. So how would you guys deal with these type of individuals?
So there's two things for me, right? There is are they willing to engage with us? And if that type of individual is willing to engage with us as a team, put their hand up and let's have the conversation. That doesn't mean we have to agree at the end of the stage, but that's a first stage. Mm-hmm. You've then got the individual who doesn't want to engage, who just wants to wax lyrical. Personally, you set it to one side and you move on. Because unless they're going to engage with the people, whether that be me, James, and others who want to take the sport forward, then I'm not interested in their opinion, and they can type on Facebook, they can type on Instagram as much as they want. But if they want to engage and at least have an opening conversation, let's do that.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, in lieu of whereby it's actually constructive as opposed to just. Sorry, James, your audio is a bit.
Sorry, we said right at the beginning, we're not going to please everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But to not, Ben said there's two sort of people. There's people that have got a good opinion who want to engage, and we've got keyboard warriors. Mm-hmm. There's nothing we can do about keyboard warriors because they are of a breed of person. And if they want to engage with us and give some constructive criticism and work with us with different ideas, nobody's got a wrong idea. It's an idea, and it should be looked at and explored.
Mm-hmm. All right, Indy, take it away, brother.
Hello. I stayed quiet because just letting people get their questions out. It might take a second now because some of the questions have been answered in part already, and some of the questions have been answered in full. But the one that I wanted to start off on is actually the first one I got, and I think this possibly should have been the first thing we covered. But for newcomers to British powerlifting who are seeing this as some people call it a coup, someone might say whatever they want, whichever way they want to put it. People want to know, why is there so much distrust with the current board? Maybe even if it's just a quick, short spiel of why you think there is distrust with the current board and why you don't like the way the current board does things at the present moment.
Two things. I'd say the first one is, for myself, countless years of attending an AGM, emotions being passed and then not being acted on. Why do we as a membership not have a voice and an opinion? And when we say as a membership, you are a paying membership, it's our money that's being used. When we as a membership put something forward, say we want to use it, and this is why I would like to move our federation forward, for it to not happen is indefensible. There's no need for that. We can't sit at an AGM and say, yeah, well, we didn't look at the PayPal just because we didn't, and then on the next breath say, well, we can't pay for coaches to go away. That's going to cost us £11,000 a year. We haven't got that money. No, but we've got £9,000 a year to waste on needless bank fees because we just won't do it. So that's the first thing. And I think for me personally, a lack of trust is built upon countless members that I know of wanting to help, but just not being allowed to. And then
can you sorry, just interrupting on that point quickly, can you, just so that people are aware, can you give an example?
So Jenny Sherwood, for 4 years in a row that I know of, I think she's stopped banging her head against a brick wall now. They were talking about needing help on the board with writing job descriptions, working out how to move forward. Jenny used to sit and as an advisor on the board to NATO on anti-human trafficking. She knows what she's doing. But one response she got 4 years ago was, we don't need your help, young lady.
So
People
help
are
was
trying to
offered,
help.
not taken, and then complained about.
Yeah. We can't do that because we've not got time. We can't tell you what's going on in British Powerlifting because we've got far too busy running it. I applied in 2019 to be communications director and got told it's not a job, it's not a director's role. We don't need you. And it's the transparency that we've gone to right from the beginning. In that there seems to be an element of, if your face fits, you can get on with life. We can get on in here and you can go move up. But where on our webpage, for example, is it documented what you have to do and a transparent progress for refereeing? It's not, because there's different rules put in each time depending on the individuals.
Yeah.
I think you said it, Joey, earlier about levels of what's going on. And these should be documents that are on there. People should be able to go on our website and go, I fancy doing and getting involved in this. How do I do it? Oh yeah, look, you can do all that if you like. And I think you should welcome help with open arms. Because you know what? If they're no good at the job and they can't commit to it, then at least they've tried and at least we've explored that avenue.
Yeah.
Just on that, just a quick note on that, Indy, before you go to the next one. I know this AGM, this year's one, when we were talking about the roles, we're talking about the role need to be split, because these roles look so condensed and almost like when you look at it thinking, someone like me, when I look at it, I'm thinking, there's no way I can help. Because I've got a full-time job, I've got a family, and I've got a lifting. There's no time for this. So one of the things that I even suggested to the board was to split these roles, make it so clear, you're coming in, you can provide us for, let's say, 2 hours a week. If I can only provide 2 hours a week, I should be able to help with my 2 hours, right? So would you guys consider splitting some of these roles across the board just to get those members in?
Jones, it's a really interesting point, right? Bit of paper in front of me here. Okay, this is our organizational chart. So the biggest issue you have at board level is that you can only have a maximum of 12. And as I say, we have to have 4 of those in time as independent directors. The solution, which has been pushed back time after time, is the subcommittees, where those that can offer 2 hours a week, 1 hour a week, or whatever it is, to engage with the relevant board members. Let's talk about development bond, because it's very expansive. As Bryn Evans, as the development director that sits on the board, I'm not putting words in his mouth, he would want a subcommittee probably containing members from every division, multiple members from every division, to be able to sit down with separately and deliver those development plans from grassroots, early age recruitment, all the way through to elite athlete development, because that's the only way that you can tackle the body of work with a volunteer army. We've already said no one is paid, but if someone can give 2 hours a week, they should give 2 hours a week. And that is the one biggest thing. Having worked on the board for 9 months, we spoke about subcommittees, AGM in, AGM out, board meeting in, board meeting out, and we never saw it. And that is the only way to take the sport forward, by engaging the people in those committees where they cannot sit on the board.
Thanks.
So just a quick question, because you mentioned grassroots progression schemes and elite lifters. So what do you mean in terms of like having it? What's the development committee going to actually do?
They're going to be able to look. They're going to be look at grassroots lifting and how we can engage with the memberships through that. But that can be brought through many different streams. I've got a grant writer ready to go to look at grassroots lifting, to look at, I don't know whether some of you heard of the Quiet Focus series that we've been doing in the North Midlands. We're coming down to Greater London to do one at the end of this month, which is great. We're bringing one down there. We've got one in the Northwest. We've got one in the Southwest coming up. But something like of that ilk, getting funding to be able to move that forward, to bring other people into our federation, then frees up money that we've got to be able to invest elsewhere. Grassroots lifting, tackling inner city youth, giving them the help with finances, with funding, we can do that. The more people we try to engage at the lower level to bring into our sport through being able to access funding with different initiatives, which is where our independent directors are going to be coming in, 3 of which are 3 people I'm talking to at the minute are experts in grant writing, getting funding in. If we start down there, that will then filter into each division.
Have
And
there,
sorry, and to be really clear, Mo, as well, because it is a really good question. We don't have all the answers now. You know, when we look at the strategic plan that I've got in front of me, we're talking out to 2027. Some of the things that we should be thinking about right now, they're unknown unknowns. We don't even know that we should be thinking about them. But the process and the team that we've got in place enables us to do that.
have there been sorry, it's just again with the whole grassroots thing, but it's like, have there been discussions with your finance, also, you know, someone you're putting up to be the finance director? Have there been discussions already in place in terms of what the vision is for the finances? As
We need to know where
other than being transparent about it, of course.
We need to know where we are right now. Although we know we have money in the bank, we don't know we have money in the bank. We need to know where we are. And once we know a full financial position about where we are, we can then put to the membership how we think we can move forward with development plans and funding for divisions. In an ideal world, we'd find out where we are, we'd be able to filter down funding about where we need to spend it. But until we know exactly where we are financially, either I, as a businessman, Ben, who works in finance, would even dream of committing to say, yep, Joey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to give every division 20 grand. We're going to do this, that, and the other, because we can't do that until we have a full financial picture, which is our absolute priority.
Okay.
But we can guarantee that through this AGM, in a very quick, smart regime, we can be tier 1 compliant for Sport England, which gives us access between 0 to £250,000 of grant funding for special projects.
Because I was going to ask, because I know we're talking about grants. I know we've had the NGB recognition since March 2022. Now, the committee has had almost a year with this recognition, but in all honesty, as a lifter, all the way to the trickle-down effect, I've not necessarily noticed any benefit or difference with this recognition. Now, with your committee coming into place, what could you give us any information about the NGB recognition and how you'd want to expand that, or maybe even use it to your benefit in the future?
I think it's really been difficult as getting into NGB, and I will say, and I'll always harp on enough. It's Richard has worked really hard to get his NGB status, and he's got to be given respect for that. He has worked hard for a lot of years doing that. However, what I will say, it becomes down to ask about mistrust. I sat at AGM, spoke to many people on the board, and we were promised by NGB status it would mean that our drug testing would get paid for. And we would get access to all these things. You could do all this special funding. There's loads of money out there. You just need to keep us in until we get NGB status. And then it was sold to us like a money tree. So then we get NGB funding. And then all of a sudden, we find out that actually we're not eligible for a penny. Right. Because nobody can be eligible for a penny while somebody's been sat on the board for 8 years.
Yeah. And we're actually, and to be crystal clear as well, we're worse off as an untiered NGB, because what it means is the federation cannot apply for funding at any level. It's now devolved down to divisions who you could arguably, some of those individuals have even less time than those who have committed to the board. The only way to unlock special project funding and funding that is not advertised on the Sport England website is through stepping our way through the tiering system. And anyone can go on the Sport England website and look at what we need to do, all these tiers, need to tick the boxes in these tiers. What we propose to do within the first 6 months to a year is to at least get us on that path and ensure the membership are aware of what we're doing. And that's all we can commit to at this point, but it is a path to tiered accreditation to unlock Sport England funding, which hasn't been delivered at any level under the current leadership.
And also commit to grant writing by January 2024. Putting applications in to our sporting governing bodies for special funding projects to move us forward, to be able to look at inclusivity for all levels of athletes, grassroots, lower level, inner city work, to be able to get money as well as funding towards that, to be able to then free up other funds of our members' money to be able to spend it more effectively. We are effectively a business. British Powerlifting is a business, a not-for-profit business. And we need to show the membership their value for money. While we're charging 50 quid for a member a year to currently not give you much back, apart from celebrate our internationals, then we need to be better at this.
Yeah.
I think Indy, there's some more questions there, isn't it, on your side?
Yeah. Just going off. So another one was, and I think this one's quite important, is how will you show transparency? Because we talked a lot about transparency, not just financially, but across the board. For example, we talked a lot about AGMs and things being passed in the AGMs. Like you said, we don't even know 2019 whatever passed in the AGM, what's been done to fix that, essentially. So like at work, we have an action tracker. As soon as you've done a meeting, that action tracker is possible for everyone to see. Everyone knows exactly what people have been asked to do, and then show their completion. How would you go about showing transparency to everyone within British Powerlifting throughout everything that you're doing, from obviously grassroots competitions and finances all the way down to motions passed at the AGMs?
Why can't we have an action tracker? Why can't we do that? Why can't we have that on the website to prove that, right, this is what we want as a federation? And then we have quarterly board meetings, a quarterly update on where each department is moving forward on the deliverables that we've promised, and the deliverables that will come about through engaging with the membership, the ideas we've got on board. Bryn Evans will come to the quarterly meeting and he'll tell us what he's doing with this development. He'll tell us where we are. He'll tell us who he's speaking to. And all of a sudden now, where we've got a development officer, he's got 5 subcommittees, and this is what these subcommittees are working on, and these are our possibilities, and this is where we're working towards. Rather than, how's the development going on, Bryn? It's going okay.
Yeah, Indy, carry on with the question, sorry.
Yeah. So we have an issue with the way that, do you have a plan in place for this sort of stuff, or is it a sort of case of it will be done, but later on? I think people just want to see people want to know a roadmap, don't they? People just, there's constant questions of what is the plan look like. For example, if come August you're in, obviously, and then we have an AGM for the 6 months, what is that plan for the first 6 months, for example?
Yeah, so like we have a detailed plan. I've got it here in front of me, right? So I've got a timeline. It moves on to the CEO statement. It moves on to our mission statement, our vision, our values, which we don't have in British Powerlifting, which every other NGB seems to have. It has the membership at the heart of what we're doing, how we intend to bring on new membership, gain access to the membership, and then our workforce, our people, our marketing and commercial plans. Now, that is a strategic plan which you will get before the EGM. But again, be under no illusion, some of the work that the competitions team are going to need to do and the development team needs to do will need to develop their detailed plans underneath that. We don't have that today. And you won't get that because an individual, 7 individuals, as we've already highlighted, can't do that alone. But what we do have is our high-level milestones, if you want to call it that, in sort of project management speak, to which we can tick boxes as we go along that, as we go along that roadmap. And then from that, Bryn, Kim, James and myself can build those plans out and deliver them to the membership as and when required. And if something is not liked by the membership turn around and say, we don't like the direction that you're going in, then we have an opportunity to test and adjust. But it comes back to all those people being engaged. But yes, in direct answer to your question, we have a roadmap, we have a strategic plan in place, and some of the high-level milestones that we need to tick between now and next June, to be fair. And yes, there's an AGM in the middle of that where elections will take place. but we do have that short-term milestone plan in place.
So as in just so that people are very clear, obviously, if someone said to you, what are your short and long-term aspirations in terms of things that are tickable, things that, you know, the membership can see over the short term? Obviously, like you said, it takes a while, doesn't it, to get things running, and there's a lot of long-term plans, and we need to think long-term. 100%, I agree. But you know, in this world of instant gratification and people wanting answers straight away, if someone says to you, could you give us, for example, 3 short-term things? I know we've covered them, but so we can make a snippet, show people, and they can, you know, it's the accountability thing.
100%.
What short-term plans have you got and long-term plans that we can say, yeah, they said they're going to give us this, tick, they gave us that.
Yeah. So,
Ben, before you answer that, I just need to add a little bit on this one. I mean, yourself, so you're a finance guy, you understand that these kind of things we have a North Star, right? North Star is always, of course, I would say the strategic plan. The things that Indy's talking about, the 3-point, which almost like a lot of people think about as a lifter, me as a member, as a lifter, sometimes it's great to talk about the performance, to talk about the coaching, to talk about the refereeing, but it's almost like saying, what are the immediate main 3 things for the lifter you guys can do in the next 3-6 months?
Yeah, because the thing is, people want tangible things. I'm not saying people are like British Powerlifting membership is fickle, but people want to see a tick in the box. Do you know what I mean? They want to say this is what they've delivered. Yes, that's fine, because that's a lot of people's issues with the way things are currently going. Is you can't look at something and be like tick that essentially.
Yeah. So the first, I think the most, let's be real, the most important thing, and we have it on our timeline, is that start of, so week 1 or 2 of November, the 2024 competitions calendar will be locked in. You've then got the Sport England grant writing to begin by January 2024, because it is that funding that feeds down into the divisions. And what we would like to see by February 2024 is any of those development plans, technical being refereeing and coaching, distributed to the home nations in February for the membership's engagement at divisional level to feed back into us. James, is there anything from your end that you want to add on to that?
June 2024, we plan to deliver the 25-26 competition calendar.
Yeah.
Where are we now? We don't know what's happening, do we?
No.
I've just Dean Bowen. You might know Dean Bowen. He's Ray's dad. He just put his bar down. We don't know we don't know what's going on. We don't know when the competitions are next year. We don't know. We haven't got a clue. Nobody knows. You international athletes don't know the competition schedule next year. You haven't got a clue what's going on and how's it going to work. They're important things. And I think it was probably 2 years ago that was in the AGM for a 2-year competition schedule to be in place.
I believe that was in 2020.
If there's know where they are, then they know what's happening. And then you can.
I think that was highlighted in 2020 because Jonas and I were there.
The other thing as well, James, right? I know potentially there's a few candidates out there, and there's potentially this can be done before the EGM, but so far it hasn't been done. Because it hasn't been done, probably I can talk about and ask, what are the plans? Do you guys have some sort of a plan on our head coach selection? Because the caveat is, again, as I said, there's a few candidates there. Some of them I know, some of them I don't know that they're going for this role. But so far, we don't know who the head coach is, and we don't know how the selection is done. All we know is the board have got the power to select who the head coach is. To me personally, I don't like that. This is my personal opinion. I don't like the fact that the board have got the power to select this. This should be given to the members and the lifters, or even the internationals, right? In terms of like, I want to be looked after by someone that I trust. You know, if someone I don't trust, why would I go to international? But anyway, do you guys have some sort of a plan how these things should be done moving forward?
Well, I think for me, the first thing you need to do is advertise the role. Because of yet, it's not been advertised. We know Henry's stepped down. We know that's happening. We know that we've probably got 3 weeks or so left before the Western Euros nominations close, and we're not sending a classic team. I had a quick split through a couple of days ago. We sat down, and if we'd have invited second or third place in, say, the men's open, you'd wipe the slate clean at Westerns. So we need to advertise, and we need to put what we require as a federation from a head coach. But I don't think, we've been speaking at length while I've been away this last week about the job of the head coach. I don't think it's a job of one person either.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to be looked at. We maybe need to look at a different way of doing this, because yes, we haven't got a Western European team going away, and we didn't have one last year because it's a lot of work for a head coach. You don't, if you're going to be the head coach of an international team, good luck if you want to go on holiday with your family, because that's not applicable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You run out of leave very, very quickly. I'm very fortunate. I run my own business. I've got a very good team, and it all but runs itself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very lucky that I can go away and do what I do, but not everybody can. So to be able to get the right candidate, I personally think the actual head coach job needs to be looked at in detail. And we need to give some proper indicators of what we require from the head coach, and also our expectations of head coaches and what we expect from them and how we're going to help them do it. That's something that needs to be sat down very, very quickly and sorted out as a matter of urgency with a subcommittee made up of past and present head coaches to see how we can help them move forward. And from there, Julians, I think we could then put a good plan together and advertise appropriately and get the right candidate for you guys.
So you spoke about Western Euros there, right? I know this is probably a question some people might be thinking. So this is another international that people can get involved to. You don't just always have to be in a full British team to go to World or Euros. There's other internationals as well. So have you guys, as a board members, if you come in, I know it's only 6 months. I don't expect this in 6 months. But I'm expecting like in your long-term, like North-South goal, Ben, as you spoke about the strategic plan there. Do you have somewhere where you're going to be looking at how you can support these B or C international? Because again, as I said, the Western Euros is not sponsored by SPD, right? In terms of like, people are not going to be getting an SPD kit if they're expecting the SPD kit. Probably they're not going to be getting it. And a lot of people know as well, it's like, they can't afford certain things. Is there a way of you guys as board, as British Powerlifting, be saying, okay, we're going to pull our money into these B international or C international?
Yeah, to incentivize the lifters pretty much.
Incentivize people to do it.
The GB singlet is highly coveted, right? Let's just put it out there. And for them to represent their nation and not having, the support to go to Western Euros.
The support is available for athletes at Western Euros. I got selected as a Masters 1 member to the Western Euros in 2019. And I see what you're saying, Julian. How do we support these athletes? But if you put it out there and invite people, they'll come regardless. People do want to go. And something like the Western Euros is a great stepping stone for improving athlete development and giving them then that chance. People will want to do it. We just need to ask them, and we need to make it available. But first off, we need to get the coaching team right to be able to facilitate that. And if then we find that there's a problem with people not wanting to take up the places through financial aspects or whatever, then we can look at that afterwards. If we find we have a problem with filling a team, then let's look at why. But first off, let's support the coaches to be able to get a team there in the first place, be it through head coach assistants or having an assistant head coach role put in place so that they maybe take the Western Euros team away. Or let's have a Western Euros head coach, somebody different. But let's get the coaching aspect first. And then the lifters say that they can't do this because of X, Y, and Z. Then let's look at that afterwards. But we're not a team without a coach.
Sorry, Ben, we kind of glazed over this earlier, but what is the vision and what did you call it again? Yeah, mission statement of your team, sorry.
Yeah, so the mission statement is for British Powerlifting is to promote, develop and excel in the sport of powerlifting across the United Kingdom. We strive to empower athletes, coaches and officials while fostering a community that values inclusivity, sportsmanship and personal growth. Through our dedication to excellence, education, integrity, we aim to elevate the standard of British powerlifting and create a pathway for our athletes to compete at the highest international levels. Together, we will inspire, unite and strengthen the powerlifting community, leaving a lasting impact on the sport and all of its participants. That is our mission statement.
Yeah. All right, Indy, other questions, bro? I know there's more.
Yeah. Okay. So we touched on it a little bit. Wasn't fully covered. Someone asked, what would be your plans for the home nation divisions, given that they're also part of the board? Do you have any immediate plans for that?
One
So from
very, very important plan
Yeah.
for home nations is to include them. You speak to 1, 2, 3 home nations directors, and most of them haven't got a clue what's going on in British powerlifting because they're kept out of the loop on so many things. That is my first plan as CEO of British Powerlifting, were I to be given that honour, would be to include all home nations in our meetings and decisions. Because right now, I know for a fact that they're not. They're there for a short period of time and okay, right, okay, thanks for coming, speak to you later, and off they pop.
Why is that? Is there a specific reason that you guys are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Ben, you were there for some time.
I mean, no, and I wasn't on what, you know, some would describe as the inner circle, so I can't comment, but, you know, as James already said, it's to include them. And there is no, you know, we have no jurisdiction over Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland and England per se. They are separately elected positions that sit on the board, but they must be included for anything, whether that be financial planning, development planning, competition planning, to move the sport forward. And currently, factually, they're not included as they should be.
I mean, this is probably a daft question here, right? I mean, you might not answer this if you don't want to, but you guys keep on saying include them into the board meeting and the decision making and all of that. Do we actually have reps in this position, or is just the positions are there and we don't even know if they filled or not? Because if you ask me who's director for England, I'll tell you
they are filled. So Tom Morgan is the rep for Wales, Bernie McGurk is the rep for Scotland, Kevin Jane is England, and I think this is right, Marty Cummings is Northern Ireland, James?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're the 4 home nations directors. They sit on the board as directors. So a lot of what we've spoken about already is how we can help divisions. Essentially, though, as British Powerlifting, that's not our job. Our job is to assist home nations in delivering that. So we need to engage with all home nations. And then a lot of it really is up to the EPA, how they talk to our divisions and how they support our divisions. But if we support our home nations, then that trickle down should happen.
Okay. Indeed.
Yeah, carrying on. So we've had an issue with people staying in positions for X period of time. How would you ensure that the same mistakes are not made in the future? Or, you know, coming from someone being in a position for too long, so how will you have plans in place to every X amount of time, you know, there needs to be a new person involved?
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Sorry.
Finished drafting a motion. I finished drafting a motion yesterday while I'm out here. One of the motions which I'm really passionate about is that nobody can sit in an elected position for more than 2 terms.
How long's the term?
3 years.
Okay.
Nobody can be in that elected position for more than 2 terms. At the end of that 2 terms, there's an option for that said individual and the board, upon agreement, for them to extend their directorship as an independent director advisory role for a maximum of 2 years. In that period of that 2 years is meant to be a good handover period. advisory on, well, what happened then? How did we do this? What did you come across by that? And be in the background as help and advisor on how they experience their maximum of 6 years as CEO. And then after that 2 years, then thank you very much.
And to be really clear as well, guys, that is also a top tier national governing body requirement. To unlock the highest level of funding from Sport England, we have to put that in place.
And that's just tier one. That's just tier one. The first tier, we need to be 8 years. Nobody can sit on a board for any period of longer than 8 years. So in answer to your question, Indy, how we ensure that is by you backing our motion on the 20th of August to say that nobody can sit there for any more than 2 terms. And that's how we make sure. And you look at most national governing bodies, most charitable organisations, 6 years isn't a long time. It's long enough for us to deliver what we want to deliver, which will include an international competition on home soil. But it's also short enough for somebody to be able to come on board and the next lot of passionate leaders within our membership to want to go, they're building something worth having. I want a part of that, and I think I can add to it now. Because if you will let me, I've got to go. I've got no choice. If you will let me, if we put that motion forward, if you will let me as your CEO, I have no choice but to walk away after 6 years. And I tell you now, I guarantee we will leave after 6 years with somebody wanting to come on board, because we'll work with anybody who's willing to work with us and move us forward.
I think one of the questions just highlight what Ben just mentioned there, like top tier one is 6 years, and for us to get a full funding across the board. Can you just elaborate that in terms of like currently, if I must say, are we lacking the funding or the grant from Sport England due to the fact that we have people on the board that have been longer than they should have to?
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, that is one of many reasons. Yeah, that is one of many reasons, right, James? So, you know, I directly answer your question, that is one of many blockers, Durins, that is preventing us even stepping into the lowest level of tiering within Sport England.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any plans that would, you know, pretty much level us up above the tier one for Sport in England?
Can we get tier one first, Joey?
Yeah.
Because we haven't got that now, have we?
But you know, with the belief that you have in the plans that you have,
let's get tier one. Let's get into tier one. Let's be tier one compliant. Let's look at how we can engage with Sport England in what we can get from that. Let's use that ability then to free up to be able to look at where we go further. Tier one funding is between £0 to £250,000 in special project grants. So let's get there.
To 250.
Let's get there and let's see how we move forward from there.
Because I like to at least see that there's, you know, there's optimism enough in the plans that you have to get above that, as opposed to just that's the milestone and that's it for the plans. But yeah,
tier one, to be able to get into access to that, it's a little bit like ISO 9001. You've got to be compliant with so many things, show a development plan, and in time, yes, we need to move forward from tier one, but the development plans that we need to put in place to be compliant to that is going to take a lot of engagement with Sport England once we've got there. Let's get there now with a view to moving forward once we've got there. We can't, I'm not going to start on rung one of the ladder thinking, well, let's get that out of the way. Let's get to rung 5, because unless we get rung 1 correctly and we're properly grounded, we're never going to get to 5. Let's get grounded. Let's get to where we need to be now with a view to moving forward and see where it takes us.
Okay.
Yeah, that would make sense, because there are roughly about 5 principles that need to be achieved to get tier 1 status, while tier 3, it's more 10 with subsections in each one that needs to be accomplished. So it's a fairly long process. But just to clarify, because you did mention that one of the issues we're facing so far with this, because I believe one thing a lot of people focus on is the tier 1 status, because obviously that opens up so much money for potential future development. You've mentioned the time that we've had certain members in place for that as a limiter or a restriction. What else could you say that, because we've got about 5 principles here. We've got the people, we've got communication, we've got standards of conduct, and we've got policies and process. Is there any one of these requirements that you can say that we're currently lacking in that you and your team could address fairly quickly within the next 6 to potentially 1 or 2 years?
Within 3 weeks, as discussed earlier, by the middle of September, we will be compliant with Principle 5, which is our process and policies.
Financial.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which gives you, there's three things that we need to comply with this. Appropriate oversight of financial planning. Currently, we're at an AGM, we don't know where we are. Financial decision-making process, it is not managed by one person alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we don't have a financial director and we don't know what's going on. But I think the most important bit about this, which we will put in place, we'll have done within a month, is for our accounts to be scrutinised independently. So that's just one thing extra that we're going to do. So that's 2 we've done already. So within 3 weeks, there's 8.5 principles of tier 1. Within 3 weeks, we've managed to tick 2 of them. Committee members are subject to regular election and shall have the idea serve no more than 9 years. So within the first day, we've made sure that's going to happen by new motions forward. And everything that you put through at an EGM is classed as a special resolution. A change of articles requires a special resolution, which we will do there and then. So that's 2 of them, 3 of them. We will be tier 1 compliant within, I'd say, before the next AGM, which is why we've put in plans in place to start our grant writing early next year, before the AGM.
Okay.
Indy?
Yeah. So carrying on with the finances thing. First of all, who's going to be doing? I'm guessing you're going to be doing an audit on the finances to see where they're at, where things are being spent, and how we're looking at the moment. Question from me: this is who, first of all, is going to be doing the audit? Is the information from the audit going to be available for the general, like, British Powerlifting public, so to speak, so they know what's going on? Is there a financial plan in place from that moment going forward, and how do you see the changes that you're making affecting membership prices?
A financial audit will actually give us, as a board of directors, a full knowledge of where we are. I, as a director of my own business, Ben working in finance, cannot put our names to a company which we don't know are financially secure. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to risk my family's future on just going, yeah, I'll do it. So it needs to be independent, which is part of tier 1. It needs to be independently outside. So that needs to be outsourced, and a report will come in.
Do you have an idea of who you plan on using for that audit?
We, through 2 NGBs that we currently know of and we are working with, talking to, I would probably surmise that we'll use one of theirs. So if we use an auditor used by another NGB, a trusted auditor done by another NGB, then we will be fine.
Yeah, and that information obviously is going to be available to
post it on the website, sure.
Yeah, post it on the website. Yeah. Do your plans, your future for British Powerlifting and its finances, will it see changes in the membership prices and stuff like this? Just questions that people have asked, or will it remain the same, or do you not have an idea just yet? It just depends.
We need to have a full picture of where we stand financially before we can make that decision. And also we need to have a full picture of how we manage to look forward. But the changes in membership prices isn't wholly up to us. It's not us. We can't do that as a board. We can't say to you, Indy, your membership next year is going to be 75 quid. We don't have the power to do that. Any changes in membership prices needs to be voted on by the membership. And if there were to be any increases or reductions in membership prices, then it would have to be fully costed and put to the membership. And we would have to say to you, this is why we're doing this, and this is what we propose to do with X, Y, and Z. There would be a full financial plan going forward if that was going to change.
Yeah. Going off that and covering on the topic of AGMs, will AGMs going forward, bloody hell, I feel like I've beaten this to death over the last year, be online?
Have we asked for it in the past couple of years? Has it been asked for?
Yeah.
Well, why haven't we done it?
Yeah. If you're in, though, if you're voted in, will these AGMs be online? Will you look at potential voting online as well, and things like that, little things that people have asked for?
When we came back from the Congress this year, and we have news from the board about how we all took part on a hybrid online Congress with the IPF, then I think, well, why can't we do it? We've got to be doing it. To go backwards a step, Indy, it shouldn't be a will you do it? It's got to be a given because it's required. So yes, I'll commit to that now.
Okay, that's got
to be either online voting live, or there'll be a pre-registered voting on motions.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. I'm glad, really, because I think that was one of the biggest issues with the AGMs in the past, obviously, is people, it's not misinformation, but there can't be misinformation if the information is not provided in the first place.
Yeah,
there was just a lack of it.
Yeah, I struggle with the voting and how we're going to do that. We're going to have to look into that. Those that have been to an AGM in the past will know quite clearly that a motion gets forward, it gets discussed, and as those that are present at the AGM can actually change the motion's wording. So like a pre-registered voting. So if you're going to vote for this in that guise, if we change that, if the membership changes that at the AGM, then you might want it in that way. That's not what you voted for. So we're going to have to look at how we're going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
But yes, minimum guarantee is that it will be online.
Right. Okay. This one's from me personally. Are you going to be looking at dealing with, we spoke about this year, juniors, sub-juniors, coaches for these people, and the safety of juniors and sub-juniors in particular? Because at the moment, I'm aware of, there's no such thing as background checks and things like that for coaches going into roles. And obviously they're in positions of power with people, with youngsters. Is that something you've thought about? Is that something you'll look to be doing in the future?
I think anybody that knows me and the work that I've done recently in both North and Midlands, the campaigning that I've done within British Powerlifting, knows full well that safeguarding for me is of paramount importance. And I don't think it's of paramount importance just for juniors either. I think it's of paramount importance for every athlete, because not all disabilities are visible. We don't know how many vulnerable adults we've got in our charge while we're at competition. We have no clue who's in there. So yes, safeguarding and background checks are going to have to, at some point, become a mandatory requirement for those who are around our athletes that we do not know. That's important. And in fact, you know what? If that's going to lose me votes, then that's going to lose it. It's me trying to keep our membership safe is of an issue to somebody, then I care less, because we need to keep them safe. And that's important. Last year, I put forward that everybody, all referees at sub-junior level and below, that we need to have a designated safeguarding lead in every division. Has to have at least one designated safeguarding lead, level 3 in safeguarding trained personnel. That they also need to have DBS checks, and advanced DBS checks preferably. I was then put in charge of a subcommittee to be able to deliver that. Within a month, I reported back to the board, and it was a done deal. The charity that I work closely with, Short Mind, which we're now doing the Quiet Focus competition with, those that run the Quiet Focus competitions and the money that is made from that goes straight back and is ring-fence funding to provide enhanced DBS checks and safeguarding and mental health training. So anybody else run these competitions gets access to all of that. And that was put forward to the board to say that this is what we can do. We had the funding to be able to do that, but we had to tick some boxes. We had to be mental health first aiders or mentally health trained, not advisors, because we're not insured for that, but we could be mental health trained to be able to spot signs and be able to signpost people to where they need to be. But by doing that fully funded training would have given you then access to an enhanced DBS check and also some safeguarding training.
Okay.
Just a quick point there before we go back to Indy is this one, Ben, probably this is for you because at the AGM this year, it was one of the discussions that was around. Do you guys have some sort of a plan on speak up lines? Because in all organizations that we work, massive firms and all of us, we have some sort of a line where if you see a misconduct is being done somewhere, sometime you don't just want to put your name toward you telling the board or telling the system what's happening. Sometimes you want to go into the anonymous way to relay that information across. I think in British Powerlifting, one of the things I've noticed over the years is people are almost not scared, but almost worried to speak up their minds, because if my name comes up there, I'm the one that sent that letter. The next thing will be like, oh, Durant said that, Durant said that, and then people already hate Durant, and I'll get even more haters. So do you have more about a plan of how these matters should be dealt with? That speak up line I'm talking about. Is it
every national governing body working in sport are obliged to have a whistleblowing policy, and that will be put on place from day one. We will have a whistleblowing policy in place from day one.
So with lifters as well, like members be made sure that this is a secure line. I always say this, our podcast is a safe space. That's why you guys are here. You're free to talk whatever you want because this is a secure space. So would the members feel, how would you guys make the members feel that this is a secure line where you can actually do what is for, speak up? Because again, as you say, that
if you put policy in place, and it's got to be confidential. Because how you've hit the nail on the head in about three different ways already, Durant. How can we find out that we've got a problem if no one's going to tell us? Mm-hmm. Quote unquote from somebody of late. I don't know why Brinkat's making all that noise. We don't need to make a song and dance about safeguarding because we haven't got a problem. Gymnastics didn't think they had a problem, did they?
No, until
if we don't make a song and dance about keeping our people safe, if we don't make sure that they know that they are safe to tell us, then we are going to have a problem. Mm-hmm. And that's back to transparency, isn't it? It's making policy. Policy is being made currently about how we're going to do it. Jenny has been talking to the Anne Craft Trust, who work closely with Sport England as advisors on safeguarding. She's well versed in safeguarding, having worked for years globally in anti-human trafficking, has seen more safeguarding issues than any human being should ever have to see. She's committed to helping us write policy which will be transparent and posted to make sure that you as members know we are committed to making you safe. And if you want to tell us something, you tell us, and we will guarantee that it is kept confidential and will be investigated and looked into.
And also, you'll be transparent in a way like how the comment or the matter will be streamlined into the solution. I mean, I'm talking about the team will be in place in terms of dealing with these things, because as much as you can guarantee to me is safe and confidential, it's all about when feedback or negative or positive or whatever we call it, when it comes through, it's almost like the reason I said it because I want to see a difference or I want to see an outcome.
Yeah.
Right?
So why can't we have on the website a flow chart process? George, you're going to come to me and say you were at a competition, you saw X, Y, and Z from a certain person, and I'm not overly happy with it. It made me feel uncomfortable. How do we deal with that? So a flow chart needs to be there so you know that by going to the person that is there to be reporting it to, you need to know the process of where it goes down. and how we plan to deal with it moving forward.
Okay. Thanks.
But it is also of the memberships. Membership have an obligation to make sure that we are also safe.
Yeah. Indy, got a few more?
Yeah, so there's 6 more. We've half covered some of these, so apologies in advance. But it makes it easier if I ask the question, there's an immediate answer so that people can look for timestamps and stuff like that. One of the main ones was, why now, and why not wait until the AGM?
Well, why now? Why now is really important. Go, Ben.
So if we wait to the AGM, you have no plan in place until 2025. Why now allows us good competition plan and development plan in place for 2024. Why waste another 8? It's not another 6 months to the AGM. Why waste another 18 months till any of this can take place?
There's one other kicker in that. The end of the year, our main apparel sponsors contract is to be renewed. So that's one of the reasons as to why now. We wait till the AGM unless we have a plan to move forward with an executive who are forward thinking. Are we of an opinion, and I'll let you guys answer this, do you think we are in a position, unless we have a forward thinking executive with plans in place, to be able to get the best out of our lead apparel sponsor?
I mean, I can take on that. Again, I think that question leads us back to the transparency we spoke about, right? At the moment, you guys have got a strategic plan, you have got North Star, you have got short and long-term goals, which is you're going to be transparent about relating that to the members before the EGM. But the current board, we don't have some, unless I'm talking our ass, but there is no some sort of a document or anywhere that they have relayed their strategic plan leading forward. So that's the problem. We don't know whether we, James, we don't know whether we have that plan to get the best out of our sponsors.
There is a plan, Gerald. The current board do have a strategic plan. It's on the website.
To be really clear as well, because this is actually a topic close to my heart, which has put me in the seat that I'm in today talking to you guys. I rewrote the strategic plan for the current board, which may or may not look similar but changed to what we're going to put forward. And it was rejected because nothing needed to change.
So if it was rejected, that means, if it was rejected, that means, James, there is no such a plan for us to get the best out of our sponsors because the plan was already rejected.
Well, no, there isn't a plan. The plan is, there is no plan currently. That's the plan.
So the answer, we can't get the best out of it.
We have a strategic plan in place. British Powerlifting does have a strategic plan. And it's an introduction. It's considered the objectives of British Powerlifting over the next 5 years and working around them. And it talks about, as a recognised governing body, our role is to inspire all UK powerlifters through exceptional leadership and expertise. And it talks about making us the best federation in the country. Nowhere in that strategic plan is laid out a timeline and actual deliverables that I want you to hold me to.
Okay.
The plan should have timelines and deliverables, and we should tell you how we're getting on.
Okay.
It shouldn't be a long list of aspirations with no actual plan as to how to get those things. I had a long chat in 2021 with Ben Banks at an event once. And I stood and spoke to him and I said, when I first started powerlifting, probably before Joey was born.
That's not hard.
I started late. I only started lifting when I was 8 years ago. I started lifting. But 8 years ago, I bought my first SBD apparel t-shirt. And it was hand printed on a Fruit of the Loom t-shirt. And I remember sitting there with Ben. I think we were at a World's Strongest Man event. One of my customers had taken me on some sort of jaunt in a box. It was great. Ben came in. I said, Ben, there's food and drink. Come and have a chat. Let's see what's going on. And I said, I've got the vision for British powerlifting. And it goes along the same lines as my SBD journey. We started off on a Fruit of the Loom t-shirt, hand printed, and look where we are now. And I don't see why. Right now, I feel that British powerlifting is hand printed on a generic t-shirt that anybody can get hold of. Why can't we go along with this journey with SBD to be SBD in that sort of vein? That's where we are now. And this is where I want to be in 6 years' time. The way that he's managed to build his business to become the premier apparel supplier globally. Why can't we? And he's willing to help us. SBD are willing to help us move us forward. But we need to have a plan, and we need to engage with both our major partners and our membership, and we will get there.
And to be impartial about it as well, whether it would be SBD, A7, Titan, doesn't matter who it was. Do you think any of those CEOs of their companies would be willing to depart with significant amounts of cash without this type of plan in place? The answer is no, right? Right now, we are affiliated to SBD. It could be any major apparel sponsor in the future, but none of them will depart with funding to help us on that journey unless we have a plan in place. And right now, there is no plan in place.
And to add to that, one last quick adder to that is, even SBD aren't willing to do so currently, which is why the SBD fund was brought about. We nearly went bankrupt not long ago because of ill-spent financial commitments on things we couldn't afford, followed by a public resignation by our then financial director. So even our main apparel supporter will not just hand over money without somebody giving them a business plan of how they wish to spend it.
But that's across the board, isn't it? When you're a business, before any investors come in and put their money forward, you need to show them the books and show them what are you going to do with my money. So I can't just put my money in the pocket without actually having a result.
Durance, who do you think today, and this came as a little bit of a shock to me the other day, who do you think today has access to British Powerlifting's money? There's two people. Who do you think they are?
I think that's Parker and Ian, I think.
No, it's Parker and Dave Turner still has access to our accounts as a twice resigned financial director.
I think this is. I think I raised this at the AGM this year, and people will bash me on this. I don't give a fuck. You cannot have someone that's resigned to run your money. There's no way. You know, what about if that person end up in? I'm not saying it's going to happen. What about if you end up in Megaloo? How are you going to chase him? How are you going to prosecute him? Because the person has resigned. It doesn't bind into your policies anymore. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, that's another subject for different days. Indy, any more questions?
Yeah. So we touched on. Is it on? Yeah, fine. National competitions. I kept getting messages about British University Championships. You know, you said you want to hold them to a standard. Does that also include BUCS?
Is BUCS a national competition?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there you go. You've answered yourself, Indy.
It's just the constant question. And my answer to these people were obviously going off now is we need the volunteers put their names forward to hold the competitions, but it'll work slightly different.
It's not going to run itself, but by my understanding, BUCS isn't only a British powerlifting entity anymore because we are affiliated and they've taken powerlifting on.
Yeah.
We need to work with BUCS, but also the student bodies need to work with us to be able to facilitate it. We will manage to put on a competition for as many days as you like for BUCS to a standard that you require, but we can't do it on our own.
No, yeah, fair enough. That's nice and easy. Another one is how do you plan on raising the profile of powerlifting within the UK?
By putting on great events like we are doing, like the team have been doing already. The team that are running currently, name me two of the best competitions in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I can.
Go on.
The name of those, two of the best competitions in the last 2 years.
Greater London Championship.
Apart from Greater London Championship.
Maybe the Manchester World Cup.
The Manchester Summer Olympics.
Oh, God.
We're managing to do it when you work with sponsors like I've managed to do for the last 2 years. The buzz that we've got through the juniors, for doing that, what we've done there, we've managed a 50% growth in entrance to juniors. There's still a buzz out there, so that then is self-motivated, isn't it?
Is there going to be
with the members, give them what they want?
I
So,
don't know.
James,
Wait,
sorry, Joey. Go on.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. Is it the case where there's going to be a fixed division that holds X competition, or will it still be the case where whoever bids for it will get it? Because I'm not like insinuating anything, but it seems to be like the best run competitions the past 2 years seems to be only held in the one location. But is there going to be like
Where's that?
Don't say it, man. Don't say it. James just want to say it because that's his division. Anyway,
But as a great London lifter, I'll say it right. Northwest, okay, put on some of the most amazing comps, even at divisional level. You look at some things they do with their Summer Slam, their Winter Wonderlands, or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Right? So
but is there going to be a way to? Is
to
it
be serious? It's again that is Kim's bag, right?
Mhm.
Coming on at British powerlifting level, and I'm not going to talk for her. But at high level, the idea is to be able to have a package, a British powerlifting package that assists those who want to bid for competitions.
Mhm.
I won't go into any more detail. It's not my area of expertise. But at high level, if you think about it, I don't know, Northeast want to put on a competition. They've got a willing and competent volunteer who wants to work with Kim to put on a package. Here is what you need to do that. And there is a team, Kim and others, willing to work with those people to put on competitions to the standard of which we see in Northwest today.
Okay.
As a national promoter, which I have been recently, plus I think the first national was 2019, running national competitions, currently you're given a list of demands. I want to give to my national promoters a list of support.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have any planned changes for? Obviously, we talk about grassroots, and we've spoke about bringing people into powerlifting. What about the people who are at the top? So at the moment, obviously, the GB team, unless they're sponsored, they essentially pay for themselves. It's a case of this year, for example, book by yourself, do things by yourself, hotels by yourself, and it causes a bit of a disconnect sometimes. Like, for example, last year at Poland, we had people living in different hotels and things I've done last minute. It can cause issues. Do you have any thoughts or plans in place of, sort of centralizing that, making it easier for the lifters and the coaches going to international competitions?
That's something that needs to be looked at with urgency. I got an email yesterday. Ella's lifting next month at European Bench. We've been backwards and forwards, not knowing when money's going to be paid, not knowing when we need to pay. We've come out here for the Masters. We pay when we get out here for our hotels. That's done this time. We get told yesterday that we've got to pay by Monday for our accommodation for the European Bench.
Yeah.
I went out to Denmark early in the year with the Open team, and I had to hand over $5,000 of my own money to the competition organizer because they refused to let Gracie Besson lift unless all the fees were paid up front right there. Fines and banquet fees, and there's some other fees outstanding that through communication, through no fault of the management of the actual team, they wouldn't let Gracie lift until these were cleared. So that needs to be centralized to be able to know that we know where we are.
And what's really important, guys, and this comes back to the financial aspects of us knowing where we are financially, but it's consistency. I go out to the Equip Bench to help coach Martin Marshall and his guys, and the plan for paying of the accommodation in France is different to me going out to support the juniors for the Junior World Championships. There needs to be some consistency as to coaches, athletes, and head coaches as to what they're doing, what they're expected to deliver, what money they're expected to depart with up front for every competition. Now, some of that we won't be able to articulate, as we already said, until we know what the finances are. But I think that the underlying factor is it needs to be consistent, so that you as an international athlete, or new assistant coach who's coming in, knows exactly what's expected of them, and that only reduces the stress either on the athlete or the coach going into that international competition.
Yeah, and that needs to be timeline. That needs to be timeline from when you get your invitation. This is what's going on. This is what you need to have done by these days. Because there's two troubles here that I foresee, and I've seen it happen in the past. One of them is even like paying entry fees. Some people just don't pay them. So we as British Powerlifting have to pay them, and they just won't pay them, and we end up chasing them. But if we're in a position where in the short term, athletes are still going to have to pay their entry fees, if that's what we decide that needs to do in the short term, then it needs to be done by a timestamp. So it needs to be done before final nominations if you want to stay on nominations. So at least we know that's going to be done. But if there's rules put in place so that it's across the board for every team and it is agreed, then it's uniform and no one's out of pocket.
Yeah.
I think you guys touched on about we don't know where our finance are. It's true. When you don't know where your finance is, you can't really make a decision when it comes to money, because one penny can make a difference. I've been saying this for years. But at the same time, we know, quotation mark, like we have 300,000 pounds in the bank, right? That 300,000 pounds is sitting there without no plan what to do with it. That's what I got from the AGM last time, right? The money is just sitting there. I wish I could have that money to pay off my mortgage, but I can't. It's just sitting there doing nothing. So talking about athletes, entry fees and doping fees, how can a federation have 300,000 pounds in the bank sitting there doing nothing and still telling their members that are actually honoring the country abroad to pay entries and doping fees when at home there's 300 grand sitting in a bank account? I do not understand that. Is this like, are you guys as coming in? If the situation is where the money's there in the bank, is there a plan in place for you almost not to force someone like a broke person like me to pay those money again? Because to me, I feel like 300 grand is sitting there, but you're still telling me to pay 105 pounds for me to go and compete abroad. So what are you doing with the 300 grand? Do you know what I mean? So is there any plan in place? Because again, you can't give me answers because you don't know.
But on the same level, Durins, why should a team coach spend between £7,000 and £10,000 a year for a voluntary position?
So these issues will be addressed. That's what you guys.
First issue, I think we touched on this right near the beginning when we spoke about the open coach. The first issue that needs to be addressed is management structure of each team, to make sure we can get the best people in those teams to look after you athletes, see how we do with that, and then we move forward to see how we can support our athletes. Because like I said earlier, we don't have a team unless we have people to run that team.
Okay.
It's not a no. That's what I will say. And that's something that I will base my term on, is by not an outright no.
Okay.
It needs to be looked at. Because if we can get funding streams through other avenues that saves us money on other aspects, then it frees up other cash.
Okay. Any more questions there from yourself?
Yeah, okay. Two quick ones. Short, sharp, I think. How does the CEO role look under your leadership in comparison to how it is at the moment? What's the biggest changes that you see in terms of what you bring to the table as CEO?
Empowerment. That's the biggest word, is empowerment. I want my board of directors and my non-executives to be able to do their jobs, to be able to give them free rein to do their job to the best of their ability. And that is the job of a good CEO. I'm not going to micromanage. We hear time and time again. I've been told already in this last week, you've already got a business, you've got I haven't got a family, I'll have turned 18 yesterday. which is heartbreaking, but you've got a life. How can you find time to do this? Correct. I would not have time right now to do the CEO to the level to which the CEO is currently doing their job, because I'm not willing to do everybody's jobs. Micromanaging is not the way that we can move forward as a federation. Because when we say, I've not done this because we just didn't have time, well, no, we don't have time unless we let people help. So that's what I bring to the table, is an ethos of teamwork, which I think works brilliantly into my previous career in the military, is working as a team and making our team excel. If anybody in the North Midlands asks, anybody, whatever I do, I will not take credit for what's going on in the North Midlands currently, or take full credit for what's gone on in the last 2 years at the Gymshark Junior Champs. The first thing I always say is, it's my team. Because without a good team that are allowed to do their jobs, we cannot flourish.
No, fair enough. And the last one, and I think that's for both of you essentially, it'll be a nice way to summarize these like set of questions, is what makes you confident that you will do a better job? You know, there's a few questions, there's a few people saying, you know, what skills do you bring to the table and stuff like that, but I think this will probably cover it anyway. Just what makes you confident that you will do a better job than the current board?
Dave, go on, Ben.
So the short answer is, doing something is better than doing nothing. What makes me qualified to do that is actually almost repeating what James has said, is willingness to bring on people who have a set of skills and let them get on with their job, but having the leadership to put together strategic plans. I was very fortunate in the military, similar to James, to be a strategic plan writer. I am not a high-level competition organizer such as Kim is, but Kim's going to get on with that job. But what I will do is enable the team under James the breathing room to not worry about the policies and the documents, and provide them leadership to get on with their job. So what will we do different? Well, one, we'll do something and do it in a collaborative way.
I think from me, I don't think it's of any secret. Anybody who follows me knows the work that I do with mental health charities. And for me, powerlifting literally saved my life. And right now, I can see it dying before my eyes, and I'm not willing to let that happen. I will put every last breath I can to make sure that we get to where we need to be, and to make sure our members are afforded the respect and federation which everybody needs. And you know what? If I get it wrong, then don't vote me in again. But I will guarantee I will give you my best of the best to be able to make sure we can move forward. And not just sit there and say, that's impracticable and no.
It's a really good point, James. And to highlight, this is interim, guys. If people don't like what we do in the next 6 months, get rid of us at the AGM. But if we don't have the opportunity now, you stand still until 2025 at a minimum.
All right. Well, I'm sure I speak for the rest of the hosts here that this has been a very heavy and very informative podcast with regards to what's the goings on in the near future, for the future of our sport, of British powerlifting at least. I'd just like to thank you guys again for coming in. But before you guys go, I just want to ask if there's any other last questions from Durant, Indy, or Mo before you go and say your last piece. Any questions, lads?
No major questions for me. I think it's just very important for the listeners to know that for us, it's very important on the podcast in particular to stay neutral and ask these questions. And it's very important that people in British powerlifting, whether they're pro, anti, doesn't matter, you need to use your voice and your votes, because you cannot not vote either way and then complain later on. I won't allow that. I don't agree with that, and I think it's absolutely shit mentality to have. Like, you know, we've given you quite a lot of information. There's also information you can find out from elsewhere. You can, like JBS and Ben have said now, you can ask them any questions that you want, slide into their DMs. There's the page, go look at the page, ask them the questions. But what I won't take is, oh, we didn't have the information going into the AGM and or the EGM or whatever it is going forward. Your sport, your federation, you pay to be in this sport. Don't be an idiot and waste your voice. Do something about it, whichever way you do it.
I think for me, if I can add a bit on that, is again, I think I said this during the conversation we had. Not everybody will be a fan of James or Ben, right? Let's try and keep our personal feelings aside here. So this is on the current board or even on this board that is willing to come in, right? Again, just be neutral here. Trying to cast your personal circumstance with the current board or the new board. Just again, what Indy said, vote for the benefit of the sport, because at the end of the day, we want powerlifting in Britain to grow. You know, one day I want my son to grow and say, my dad used to do a group sport, not just like people call us a gym sport or whatever. Do you know what I mean? So for that to grow is that the members, we need to put our votes in the right cause. And again, I think Indy said, cover this. If you need information, you don't have information on the website or whatever, reach out to these guys here, or even reach out to the current board, because at the moment, like, we have James and Ben here where you guys can reach out to and speak to. So if you think they have the mean, or if you think you want to contrast their ideas to the current board, more than, I'm sure Richard always said, is more than welcome to get your emails. And Ian is there sitting there with the other board. Reach out to these guys, get as much information as you can before you make that vote, because that your vote is important. It's kind of what the American who said, your country, your federation needs you. So make sure you do the right thing here. So that's my message across the board.
Mo?
I think one thing I did want to ask was, how do we, if anyone wants to vote, how do we support this movement? If people want to support, if people want to get more information,
we're still waiting out on that, on how we support people voting. I've sent 3 emails now to the board for clarification on the proxy process over the last 2 weeks. So still waiting on a reply. Be nice if we had one soon. We'll push for that again. But just reach out to us, and I'm sure there will be a proxy vote if needs be. I'm sure there will be there's got to be an avenue. We need to have that clarified. Like I say, we have been asking, and it's yet to be clarified from the current leadership. But no, just ask us. And from me, just especially for you guys, thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. And especially as Jurins, Indy and Mo said, it's a choice. We're giving you a choice. We're giving you an alternative choice to what we have currently. And if you want to be part of that choice and move forward with us, help us move you forward as a membership, then just reach out and support us. Or don't, because that's democracy. But take part if you can. I urge you.
So obviously we're all active members here in our sport, so we wanted to highlight whatever the the new changes or potential new changes that will come about. I wish you luck in all the endeavors you're putting across, and whatever outcome there is for the betterment of the sport itself. I'm sure you guys want that regardless of the outcome. But before you guys go, any last few messages out there, any last statements before we close up the podcast?
I think one last from me is engage, reach out, follow me, JBS 1975, follow Ben, ask us any questions you want. We can put them to our team, and we just ask for a chance, really. And like we've said, this isn't a power grab, because you've got to elect people in 2024 regardless. If you want us on board, if you want to be part of our new movement to move us forward, then anybody can help.
All right.
Get involved. Ben?
Yeah, look, we need everyone on board, right? So as James has already said, reach out to us. If one of those roles that I mentioned earlier that isn't filled, ping us a message. Let's have a conversation, and let's add you to the list.
All right. Well, again, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on. It's been like I said, it's been very informative. I know you guys gave us much information currently that you have, and anything else that you can clarify on, I'm sure you are more than willing to put out there on the social medias and everything else with regards to your pretty much agendas on what you got in store. But yeah, thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Cheers, guys.
yeah,
Cheers,
yeah.
guys.
So yeah, take care.